Hi everybody, it's John back again with another model inbox review. Today we're talking about the British M3A1 Grant tank, which was the British anglicised version, if you like, of the M3A1 Lee tank produced by, I think it was American Loco Company in America. Um, Also, Detroit Arsenal Tank Plant built quite a number of these tanks. And also in Britain, some of them were built by a company called Baldwin Brothers Limited. Um, yeah. Anyway, the Grant tank was a stopgap tank, if you like, until the Allied forces could receive the Sherman tank. And this tank provided the Allied forces with a decent punching gun at the expense of stealth, because they made quite a large target on the battlefield, being quite a high tank. Anyway, which model am I doing today? Well, I'm doing the 72nd scale version of the Grant tank from Hasegawa in the mini box series number 5. But before we can go into the boxing history, I'll need to show you this picture. This is the mini box series number 4 of the Hasegawa medium tank M3 Lee Mark 1. And the reason why I'm showing you this picture is because the Grant tank is actually based on this kit. It is exactly the same kit inside the box, it just has a separate sprue to build the turrets up, because the turret is slightly different. It's got more radio gear in the back, and it has a bustle at the back of the turret, which differentiates between the Lee and the Grant tank. But this tank was originally released in 1973 by Hasegawa, and concurrently it was released along the same time by mini box number 5, the medium tank M3 Grant Mark 1. And you can see here the turret is different. There's no machine gunner's hatch at the top. It's just a flat hatch forming a very low cupola. But the rest of the tank is virtually identical as the Lee, as you can see. And these two kits were released in 1973 under the guise of Mini Box 4 and Mini Box 5, 5 being for the Grant. In 1973 also, Hasegawa merged with a company called Minicraft to sell the medium tank M3 Lee Mark 1 as well, but they did not release the Grant tank under the Minicraft label. It was only released by Minicraft as the as the Lee tank. So anyway, that's 1973, and we go through to 1974, and a couple of interesting kits here. Hasegawa released a couple of vignette model diorama series, and two of them were based on the Western Desert Campaign. The first was mini box series diorama set number 3, which was Benghazi. This comprised of I believe that's a Grant tank with an M3 Stuart posing as a Honey and a Willys Jeep on a diorama base, and this was all inclusive inside the box, and that was released in 1974. And I know I haven't got a pure Hasegawa boxing of this kit, but this is the other one they released, the Tripoli boxing, and this comprised of 2 Tiger Mark 1 tanks and a M3A1 Grant tank, which shown on the diorama as being knocked out. And again, you get this diorama base, which you can see. It's an interesting image here, but I can't find an image online of the Hasegawa only release of the Tripoli diorama vignette. So I've showed you this to show you what you get on the inside for the diorama base. 1974 for those two releases. And then in 1975, Minicraft Hasegawa released these two kits as well. The Benghazi kit, I think you just got a desert road, and you can see the Willys Jeep, the Stuart Honey light tank, and the M3 Grant tank. I think that actually is a Lee tank. Looking at the turret there, that looks very much like a Lee tank. Interesting that. And then you got the Benghazi offering, and you can see the Tiger tank's a lot clearer in this image, and then the Grant tank at the side here has actually been knocked out for the diorama, which is interesting. So that's the two vignette Minicraft sets. As I said, they built quite a lot of these. I think they built 6 in all, comprising different theatres of World War II. But these were the two that related to the North African campaign that comprised of the Grant and the Lee tank. 1975 there for the Minicraft Hasegawa kits. Then in 1976, Hasegawa Hales released the medium tank M3 Lee Mark 1 under the mini box number 4 labels. and Hales released these in 1976 alongside the Hasegawa tooling. They're exactly the same model as you got with the M3 Lee, and again you got the M3 Grant under the Hasegawa Hales label, mini box number 5. They were both released in 1976. Then you had a couple of strange ones. The first was from a company called Popeye. They released these kits in 1980, 1981, that sort of era, and they released the M3 Tank Lee Mark 1 in a Popeye label. These models are actually the same as the Hasegawa kit, but I think they had quite vibrant coloured plastic inside. I believe these were a sort of a limey yellow, and they also released the M3 Grant Tank Mark 1, and again I think these might have been a tanny yellow colour. Interesting, those in the early 1980s. And then around about 1983, a company called Science Treasury, I think these are based in China, they released the M3 Lee tank, but not the Grant. They only released the M3 Lee tank, and you can tell a Science Treasury kit because it has a tan coloured top, and the Popeye release has a green coloured top. It's just a little bit of an interesting thing there. Anyway, that's the early to mid 1980s. And then in 1991 you had the modern box releasings, firstly of the medium tank M3 Lee Mark 1. I think the serial number of this kit is MT04, and then they also released the Grant tank, which is MT05. Yeah, there's the MT05 label there, but the serial number 31105. Obviously the Lee would have been 104. On these bluey grey sort of boxings, these are the modern boxings, but it's interesting because I think these models have been discontinued now because they've disappeared off the shelves. You can only really get them on second-hand sales media sites like eBay and possibly KingKit, Amazon, companies like that will sell them second-hand. But I haven't seen any of these in the shelves, and they certainly haven't been distributed throughout Amarang for quite a number of years now. So anyway, that's 1991. We'll just leave you with a nice image there of a Grant tank. Not sure where this is, but I've got a feeling it could be Bovington. Not 100% sure, but this is a Grant tank. I believe it's an M3A5 because the turret looks unusually different. Just looks slightly higher to me. Anyway, that's the M3 Grant tank. We'll just pan the camera down now and show you this quite delightful little kit. I'll just bring the camera up a little bit and slide it round. That down. There we go. Just pop that on the end of there, and then that should pop it down a little bit more. There we go. That should give you a nice image. There we go. Right. I've got a 1973 release of the Hasegawa mini box number 5, and on the front cover there you've got a nice image of the Grant tank with some Afrika Korps infantry and the tank commander manning what looks like, I'm not 100% sure what type of gun that is actually. There'll be some people out there that know what it is. The gun in the upper turret is actually a 37mm anti-tank gun, and it fires a high velocity anti-tank round, but the main cannon was actually the 75mm gun in the side sponson, which is what made this tank so easy to knock out, because you had to have all of this exposed to the elements and in view of the enemy to fire that gun. It's a shame it wasn't in a turret. On the sides you've got an image there of the tank side view. You've got Hasegawa's company address there at Saisakusho Company Limited, Shusoka in Japan, International British Army 172nd scale medium tank M3 Grant Mark 1. On the end you've got what would have been charged for this kit when it was sold originally at £2.40. When they were being sold in the blue-grey boxes, these retailed for anything between £9.99 and £10.99. You've got some images there. I've built all 4 of those on my channel. Mini boxes 1, 2, 3 and 4, leading up to the Lee tank there, of course. And the distributor in England was Amarang Limited, and they're based in Lansing. And then it's a flip top lid, so quite easy. The original plastic colour there was grey. A lot of people think the original plastic colour of this kit was actually light tan. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure whether this is an original plastic from the original boxing, because I think it could have been tan as well. It could have been a tan colour, and this looks very much like the plastic that was inside my Lee tank. Anyway, let's have a look, see what you get in the bag. I know what you've got in the bag because I built the Lee tank, and you know it's exactly the same except for what was there before. I'm not going to go pedantic through the parts because you know you've seen them with the Lee tank video that I did. But let's just get these bits and bobs out, and we'll have a look at these in turn in a minute. Instructions. The instructions are exactly the same as the Lee tank, except for the information on the front and the stats, and the picture of the Grant tank there. Everything is identical, and you go through the build on the kit, which builds up in 6 construction stages, just like the Lee tank did. I think there might have been 7, because I think there was 2 construction stages for the turret. I can't remember, to be honest with you. It was a few months ago when I built this. But basically in section 1 you build the turret up for the Grant, and then section 2 you build the chassis and the lower body section there with all the road wheels, suspension units, and it shows you, you know, it's quite self-elementary really. The upper body shell and the side sponson for the 75mm gun, and then you build the hatch assembly for the main body, and the containers and toolboxes on the side there, and a few of the hatches, and then you marry everything up with the stores containers at the back here. These are very nicely detailed, you'll see in a minute, and then the crew figures, which are pretty much the same as the Lee tank was. And it's interesting there because that last image there is exactly the same photograph, pictorial image, as you have with the Lee tank, and I'll tell you that because it's got the Lee turret on it, which is interesting. On the back, you've got the colour callouts and the sprue tree plans, which I'm a massive fan of. I always like these sprue tree plans because if you can't find a part, you can just liaise, you know, peruse a sprue plan, and you can see exactly what sprue it is you need to find the part on. And then the colour callouts, you've got there a green tank. Interesting. The inside of the tank, they're telling you to paint glossy white, which is true, but I don't tend to paint the inside of the tanks at all. And then on the other side, this is a tan coloured tank for the Western Desert campaign, and it doesn't actually tell you what these 2 versions are in the Hasegawa kit, but I've done some research and I found one of them, the North African campaign, and the other one is being a green tank, I'm pretty sure was a British base tank, part of the evaluation unit for the British Army in early 1942, before the tanks were sent out into the various operational theatres. The decal sheet here is not much to write home about. There's not a huge amount on here. The decals are pretty run-of-the-mill. They're not fantastic, they're not terrible, they're just satisfactory, and there's very few of them there, so that's pretty much of a muchness really. Just pop those in there, and the sprues, I'll show you that one in a minute. Now I did show you these on the Lee tank video, but I'm going to just show you again because this is really a different inbox view. But the parts on the Hasegawa kit, they're not too badly detailed. You've got lots of toolboxes and stuff on the back of that body shell. The crew figure on the other sprue, there's his arms for him. So he'll have posable arms, which is quite nice, and that's the commander figure for the turret. And that's quite nice as well. You've got a little bit of detail in there for the body shell. It's quite nice, isn't it? And the sponson for the gun. Not a lot to write home about there. They're all pretty. I mean, the 73 issue, isn't it? I'm looking at these parts, and I thought there was a little bit of flash on here, but it's not. It's not a little bit of flash at all. Interesting. The main bogie suspension wheels there, they look like they've got flash on them, don't they? But they're actually not. If you turn them over, you can see it's the shape of the mounting blocks underneath, and they're quite flat on the top, which is interesting. There's the there's the figure there for the guy. He'll have the movable hands and arms. All these little hatches here, they're quite nicely detailed. The gun there, AT gun and the main 75mm, and then you've got these storage case boxings that go on the back of the body shell. There's a little bit of flash on that. Drive cog, can you see that will need cleaning up? Nothing really difficult. Interesting. Yep, that looks alright to me. All the road wheels, they seem quite adequately detailed, just as they were with the Lee. It's exactly the same. Parts are identical. Let's just put that under that one, so I can put this body shell in place here, is it? Oh, it's under there, that's alright. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Then we've got this sprue, which is the lower body shell section here, and that's the lower floor, and the chassis. That's where you put all the road wheels onto, and the side skirts. Quite nice. There's some little detailed parts there. Can you see them? Quite nicely. They're quite nicely cast. The kit is actually quite nicely cast, as I remember it was with the Lee. The difference with this, the Grant tank and the Lee tank, is this sprue here. You can see it's marked M3 Grant. Not easy to show up there. There we go. M3 Grant. And you've got the turret with the little bustle on the back. It's like a reshaped turret, so you can get the radio gear into the turret top, and there's the base of the turret. Rotating pin there, that'll need sanding down a little bit. And the commander's hatch. Little boxes there, quite nice. And it's quite nicely rendered. I quite like the way it's been rendered, which is good. So anyway, what we'll do, we'll just put the lid back on here. You've got the rubberized the rubber vulcanized tracks, just like before. I remember putting these on the Lee. They're okay. They're nothing to write home about, as I said before. They're just average tracks, average parts really for the era. Anyway, right. The kit we're doing an inbox review on today is the Hasegawa M3 Grant Tank Mark 1. Serial number is mini box number 5. And the release date is 1973, of which I have an original release date boxing, and there are decals for two versions. The first is an M3 Mark I serving the 7th Armoured Division Evaluation Unit in England in 1942, and the second is an M3 Grant Mark I serving the 7th Armoured Division in North Africa in 1942, leading up to the El Alamein campaign. 74 parts on 4 grey plastic sprues and 2 vulcanised rubber tracks, making 76 parts in total. The tank should measure 2 3/4 inches in length by about 1.5 inches wide by about 1.5 inches high on its tracks. And the options and costs, there are a few, but not that many that, you know. So I've tried to keep them down to 1/76 and 1/72 scale. Now, in 1/76 scale, there is only really one pony in the stocks, and that is the Airfix Lee Grant tank kit, the Series 1 model. That kit retails for anything between £14 and £25. But Airfix also did an El Alamein battle set, which comprised the Lee Grant tank and a number of other vehicles and some packed soldiers. And these kits are actually really rare, and I've only ever seen one come up in the last 3 years, and it's sold for around about 200 quid. So I'm going to say £150 to £200, because you might be able to find one of these somewhere on a sales media site somewhere, and you might be able to pick one up for a little bit less, but I would say 150 to 200. Now, Airfix had their kits reboxed by MPC in America. The Lee Grant tank is about £20 to £30, and MPC did a Guadalcanal set, which comprised the Lee tank, built from the M3 Lee Grant tank set, and that retails between £60 and £80. You can actually get one of these I believe it's on eBay at the moment, but it's in an American site. In 72nd scale, there are a number of standalone models. The Hasegawa Grant Mark 1 retails for anything between 20 and 40. It seems to be a little bit rarer to get a hold of than the Lee Mark 1 tank version of the same kit, which retails about 14 to 25 pound. Now the Hasegawa Benghazi and Tripoli vignette diorama sets got no pricings available for those, but I would say again they'd be in a similar range to the Alamein set, so I'm guessing about £150. Mirage Hobby did a number of Grant tanks and Grant developments. The M3 Grant Mark 1 straightforward tank model kits, £15 to £20. The M3 Grant Mark 1 Command tank is about £15 to £20. They did a Grant Canal Defence light tank for about £15 to £20, and they also did a Lee Mark 1 for £15 to £20. They did a Soviet operated Lee tank for about £15 to £20, and they did an M33 Prime Mover, again about £15 to £20. They also did an M31/T2 Heavy Wrecker built on a Lee chassis for about £20 to £25, and there's also a company called Model Trans Model Bow who did an M3A1 General Lee cast hull tank. This is a resin cast tank, but it's of a specially built Lee tank that had a cast hull rather than a riveted hull, and that model retails for about £20 to £25. SS Model built an M3 Grant 3D printed for about £5 to £15. They also did an M3 Grant with Paravane, again 3D printed, £10 to £18. They also did an M3 Lee 3D printed tank for about £5 to £15, and they built a T40, a stroke T40 3-inch howitzer. Both these are two separate boxes of the tank destroyer built from the lead tank chassis, all 3D printed in separate boxings for £10 to £18. Now, a number of these kits are reboxed, mainly the Hasegawa models. So these are all reboxed Hasegawa kits. Now Hasegawa Hales built the M3 Grant for £20 to £30, again quite rare. They also released a Hasegawa Lee tank for about £9 to £20. Minicraft Hasegawa built the M3 Lee tank Hasegawa kit for about £20 to £30, and they also built the M3 Grant tank for about £20 to £30. Minicraft Hasegawa also released the Benghazi set and the Tripoli sets based on the Hasegawa vignette combat sets. These again have got no prices available at the time of press, but they're probably about 150 to 200 quid as above. Popeye, they released the M3 Grant reboxed Hasegawa kit for £5 to £30, and they also released the M3 Lee reboxed Hasegawa kit for £5 to £30. The Science Treasury boxing of the M3 Lee tank Hasegawa kit reboxed is about £6 to £18. Now, conclusions. I built the Hasegawa M3 Lee tank for the channel a few months ago, and as this kit is just a re-turreted kit of the M3 Lee, it should go together pretty much as good as the Lee kit did. The decal options are a bit vague, as Grants were really only used extensively in Northern Africa, but some were sent to Burma and India. These tanks were utilised in the light support role. The green option in this kit can only be for the evaluation unit in England, which comprised of about 4 to 5 tanks, and they were painted desert sand and shipped off to the Western Desert very quickly after the tank was accepted into service. The Indian and Burmese variants just retain their desert sand camo. I hope this video has been of some use. If you've got any queries and questions, just pop them in the comments boxes and I'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible. I hope all your projects are running very smooth. It's nice weather out there, so yeah, it's nice to be indoors and get some modelling done. Anyway, it's nice to have you view the channel and see this video. I hope to see you for the next one, and I'll see you for now. Bye bye.